Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for stopping by today. Today I have a couple of fun projects to share with you. I actually shared this, just the photos of it, over on my blog a little while back, and I wanted to share a video tutorial here as well. I'm going to be using some new products from the Essentials by Ellen line. This is the Believe script die and then also the antlers die. And I thought it would be really fun to cut these antlers out of some real wood paper. Now this is real cherry wood paper. You cut it just like you would any other cardstock and it really does cut beautifully. I'm just using my craft pick here to kind of pop it out of my die. And you can see that I am left with some perfectly cut little wood antlers. Now, I thought it would be fun to kind of add these antlers to that Believe word. And I really wanted to make the Believe word substantial. So what I'm going to do is I have some peppermint cardstock here. This is from Basil. And I have the Stick-It adhesive. And what I'm going to do is just cut down a small piece of the Stick-It adhesive and apply it to the back of my peppermint cardstock. I'm going to cut this really intricate die out of this cardstock several times, and I'm going to stack it up on itself to add some dimension and some weight to it. It really makes it feel like it's an embellishment. But I didn't want to have to add adhesive to every single die cut. So what I did was I just added that Stick-It adhesive on the back of the cardstock, and then I flipped the cardstock over and I'm just die cutting this Believe from the front side. Now, I did use my precision base plate here. I just feel like with intricate dies like this, I get a better result when I use the precision base plate. If you don't have that, you could try using a cardstock shim, or I know that I think it's Memory Box makes a metal shim that you can try as well. So now that I have these all cut out, I am actually going to take one of these and pop it right back into the negative space. That's going to keep my die cuts kind of in the shape that they should be as I stack them up on top of each other. Now in that one that I placed in the negative space, I didn't remove the backer from. So the backer is still protecting the back side of that so that I will be able to use the adhesive on the back side of it when I attach it to my project. But as I go on here, I am removing the backer and using that Stick-It adhesive to stack these one on top of the other. So you can see I'm just removing the backer there. Sometimes I like to use my craft pick to help me get that backer started. And then I'm just going to line it up on the die cut that's below it. And I'm going to stack this up about 5 times. This is going to make it a really substantial die cut. It's going to give it some weight and really help it to kind of carry itself on the front of this card. Otherwise, it would just kind of fall flat, literally. I didn't plan to say that. That just happened. So you can see I'm planning out my card here. I have that Believe die cut that's all stacked up. I have my little antlers there, and you can see I'm going to do my little nod to Rudolph there with a little gem below that would be kind of like his nose. Now, I wanted a sentiment that would say, "'Tis the season to believe." But I only had one that said, "'Tis the season to sparkle." So what I did was I just inked up the very top of that stamp. You could also cut your stamp, but I only inked the part that says, "'Tis the season to sparkle" by just applying it to the edge of my Versamark ink pad. I stamped it onto my Licorice Twist cardstock here, and I added some Detail White embossing powder, and now I'm just heat setting that. When you're embossing on dark cardstock like this, make sure you are prepping the surface with some sort of anti-static powder tool. I use the EK Success powder tool, but that's going to help keep that powder from sticking to places that you don't want it. And then you saw me take that piece of black cardstock over to my trimmer, and I just trimmed it right up against the edge. So I have this really narrow strip of black cardstock that is kind of my supporting greeting here. So now I'm just kind of arranging all of this onto my card front. I actually have a very narrow card front that I'm using here. It's 5.5 by, I think, 3 3/4 here. And I also have a card base here. This is an Essentials by Ellen white linen card base. It's cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and then scored at 5.5. And I'm just taking some of the We Are Memory Keepers Shape and Tape. It is like these sheets of washi that you can trim down. And so I've just trimmed about a 1/2 inch piece of that, and I've applied it to the left-hand edge of that card base. Now, the card front I'm using is also that Essentials by Ellen white linen cardstock. I really like that because it adds a little bit of texture to these plain white cards, and kind of when you have a lot of white space like that, that texture just adds that one little touch that you need to really make it feel complete. So once I have that washi tape applied, I went ahead and applied foam tape all over the back of my card front, and I'm just placing this onto my work surface to make sure that those right edges line up. And then I placed that card front onto the card base and gave it a little bit of dimension with that foam adhesive. And now I am taking just a tiny strip of that peppermint cardstock and kind of laying it in behind the card front where it's raised up. I just wanted a little hint of that red along that edge. It kind of just makes it feel a little more complete. And once I get that attached down, I'll just trim off the excess. So now it's time to assemble this card. I'm going to kind of get my bearings where I want this believe. I added some tape runner adhesive to this sentiment strip to begin with. On the second card, I used a little foam adhesive to attach it just because I felt like it just needed a little something more. So now that I have that first little strip of cardstock sentiment down, I'm going to remove the backer from my stacked up die cuts here. So remember, it has that stick-it adhesive along the back side. I've removed the backer and I'm going to place it onto my card. Now I'm going to use my T-square ruler here just to make sure that I get this all straight. So I'm just pressing the bottom of that die cut along that T-square ruler. I've pushed that, T-square part against the side of my card over there. And then I pressed that down. Now, the nice thing is I didn't press very hard. I just gently tapped it into place. But stick-it adhesive is repositionable until you really press it down. So I have a little open time. I have a little forgiveness here with that to make sure that if I want to move this around, I can. So what I've done is I've just kind of pulled up the die cut just a little bit. You're going to see me move it down and move it over a little bit here to make room for my antlers. And then I'm going to tuck the antlers in behind where that L comes up from the Believe. So it kind of looks like my Believe die cut has some antlers here. Now, this particular wood paper that I am using today has a adhesive backer already on it, so I didn't have to add adhesive to it. But if you just buy the plain regular wood paper, you could add the stick-it adhesive to the back of that as well. So now I'm just adding some finishing touches to my card. You can see I have that big, bold red gem below my Believe to be my little Rudolph nose there. This is kind of like a 'tis the season to believe, kind of like a little not so literal hint at, kind of some of our more famous Christmas characters here. And I'm going to finish off this die cut by adding a layer of Christmas red stickles. I just wanted it to be kind of glittery. And rather than try to put it on from the bottle because it is so delicate, I went ahead and squirted it on a scratch piece of paper and just painted it on with a really fine paintbrush. Now for the second card, I'm going to do a little nod to Santa. And for this, I'm going to use this Fat Pants stamp set. I have to laugh because I love this stamp set. Get your fat pants. It's Christmas time. We all do that, right? I think I'm actually starting a little early this year. I'm starting in October. And I think I'm just going to wear stretchy pants throughout the year. Until New Year's when we all make our resolution, right? So for this card, I'm going to do my little nod to Santa. I'm using the little Santa's beard and the little Santa's hat. And what I'm doing is just kind of getting a bearing for where I want my stamps. And what I've done is I've positioned my stacked up die cuts here. I've used my T-square ruler to make sure they're nice and straight, that it's nice and straight across the front of my card. Once again, I'm using that white linen textured cardstock from the Essentials by Ellen Line. And once I have gotten those stamps into place, I'm going to close the lid of my MISTI and just pick up those stamps. So now I can go ahead and ink up my stamps. I'm going to ink this stamp up in some Mama Elephant red pigment ink. I'm sure it has some fancy name like candy apple or I don't know, but for right now, because I can't think of what it is, it's just red pigment ink from Mama Elephant. I'll link it in the supply list, of course. I've inked that up in some red pigment ink, and then I've inked up the beard in a really soft gray ink from Altenew. I believe it's the Evening Gray. I will link that in the description as well. So I wanted a little bit more intense color, so what I'm doing is I'm just adding more ink to these stamps. I'm going to stamp it down in the exact same place that I stamped it before. The other thing was that these were brand new stamps. I hadn't stamped them before, so I didn't get a great impression on my first image, so that's why I stamped them again. Now, it was really bothering me that this red was not quite as deep as the peppermint cardstock that I was using. So I grabbed my Hero Arts Red Royal ink pad and a little makeup sponge. I cut a little piece of that makeup sponge. I sponged the ink onto that stamp and then stamped over it. And that really deepened up that red color for me and made me a lot happier because it matched better. I'm sure nobody would have noticed, but I noticed these things, so I have to fix them. Now, I finished off that second card in the same way that I did the first, and I did want to mention that with both of these die cuts, once I added the Christmas red stickles over the top, I allowed that to dry and then added a layer of glossy accents to just really make that red glitter sparkle. So there you have it, a couple of fun kind of nods to our favorite Christmas characters, Santa and Rudolph. As always, I will have links to all the products used in these projects over at my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com, where you can see more still shots and get more information. And I will have links to the featured supplies in the description at YouTube. Thanks for stopping by today. I really hope you enjoyed these projects. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.